The first time I saw them was on the eve of the siege of Valter's Reach. Smoke covered the horizon like a second sky, and the ruins of our outpost glowed faintly with the dying light of what had once been a world worth saving. I was down to my last power cell, half a clip, and a flask of lukewarm water when the storm hit. The air shimmered as the temperature dropped, the ground cracking under sudden frost. I thought the radiation storms had mutated the weather again, until I saw their silhouettes emerging through the mist, tall, symmetrical, and entirely too calm for the hell we were standing in. Two figures walked toward me in perfect unison, their armor reflecting the dying firelight. When they stepped closer, I saw their faces. Red skin like burnished iron, eyes gold and unblinking, and long braids as pale as starlight. For a heartbeat, I thought they were ghosts or illusions brought on by exhaustion. Then one of them spoke. "You're the one they left behind," she said. Her voice carried a strange resonance, like two tones harmonizing in one breath. The other sister tilted her head, studying me. "He still burns," she said softly. "He still has flame." I raised my rifle out of reflex, though it felt meaningless. "Identify yourselves," I managed to say. "We are what's left," the first one answered. "And so are you." They called themselves Lyra and Cain, twins born of the Pyrrhian lineage, the last embers of a species built to harness living fire. Their people had been scattered across the stars long before the Dominion reached us, hunted for the energy that ran through their veins. When the humans landed on their world decades ago, it hadn't been a war at first. It was an exchange, our machines for their flame. But greed is a contagion, and someone decided the Pyrrhian spark was better stolen than shared. Now there were only two left. They found me half dead, pinned beneath a collapsed section of ferrocrete, my pulse flickering on their sensors like a dying signal. Instead of leaving me, they pulled me out, burned the infection from my wound with their bare hands, and kept me alive through a night that should have killed us all. When I woke, I found them sitting beside the fire they had made, not from fuel or kindling, but from the heat of their own palms. The light didn't hurt. It was warm in a way no reactor could ever reproduce. I watched the twin flames dance between them, alive, breathing. Lyra noticed me watching. "You fear fire," she said. "Only the kind that burns everything," I replied. She smiled faintly, her eyes catching the glow. "Then learn the kind that remembers." In the days that followed, we traveled together through the wreckage of the Reach, scavenging supplies, evading Dominion patrols, and slowly learning how to understand one another. The twins spoke in fragments, finishing each other's sentences as if they were two halves of the same thought. Cain was quieter, more observant, while Lyra carried a defiance that felt almost human. They moved like mirrored flames, one steady, one wild, both impossible to ignore. When they rested, they would sit across from each other, palms raised, and share their energy in silence. It wasn't light they passed between them. It was something deeper, a pulse that resonated through the air like a heartbeat. Once, Lyra caught me staring again. "You think it's strange," she said. "I think it's beautiful," I admitted. "It's balance," Cain said quietly. "Without her, my fire would fade. Without me, hers would burn too bright." There was no metaphor in her tone. It was simply truth. I found myself wondering what it would mean to exist in such symmetry, to share life so completely that even pain belonged to both. The third night, a Dominion drone passed overhead, scanning the valley where we hid. I moved to shut off our beacon, but Cain stopped me. "Don't," she said. "It can't see us." "What do you mean it can't?" I began, but then I saw it. The air around us shimmered faintly, heat warping the visible spectrum. Their flame didn't just warm, it cloaked. "We bend light when we burn," Lyra explained. "Fire is not only destruction, it's concealment too." I couldn't help but laugh softly. "You two really are impossible." "No," she said, smiling faintly. "We just refuse to go out." Her words stayed with me. By the time we reached the ruins of the human command post, the world had changed color. The air shimmered gold. The ash turned to glass beneath our boots. Lyra said it was the residue of Dominion mining drills melting the soil. To me, it looked like we were walking through the remnants of a dream. Inside what was left of the outpost, I found the wreckage of my squad's beacon, crushed, burnt, unsalvageable. We were truly alone. I sat on a broken console, the exhaustion catching up to me. "You should have left me when you found me," I said. "You'd have survived longer." Kane looked at me with that eerie, steady calm. "We don't leave what burns," she said simply. "The flame we share grows stronger in another's heart." I didn't know what to say to that. Maybe she was right. Maybe that was all survival really was, one fire keeping another alive. That night, the wind changed direction, carrying with it the metallic tang of ozone and rain. Lyra stared into the sky for a long time before speaking. "They're coming," she said. "The Dominion?" I asked. "No," she said. "Something older." Her tone made my skin crawl. "Older than the Dominion? Older than war," Kane murmured. "The fire that taught even gods to fear the dark." Before I could ask more, the ground trembled, and a low hum filled the air, a resonance that made my teeth ache. The twins stood in unison, their eyes burning brighter. "It's drawn to your light," Lyra said, glancing at me. "My what?" "You shared your fire with us when you touched our flame," Kane said softly. "Now it knows you too." I looked between them, realization dawning like a distant sunrise. What did I share? Lyra met my gaze, her voice barely a whisper. "Part of what makes you human." The world around us began to shimmer, the horizon fracturing into motes of golden dust. In the reflection of their eyes, I saw shapes moving through the light, massive, formless beings made of heat and gravity, ancient as the suns. I raised my rifle again, though it felt like a child's gesture against eternity. "What are they?" I asked. "The keepers of the first flame," Kane said. "The ones who took it from us long ago." "And what do they want?" Lyra's answer was quiet, but final. "To see if you deserve to keep it." The ground beneath us rippled as though the world itself were breathing. I had seen ships fall from orbit, cities burn under ion storms, men torn apart by gravity bombs, but I had never seen anything like what emerged from the veil of light that night. The air folded inward, and out of it stepped beings taller than towers, their bodies composed of shifting ember and smoke, each motion accompanied by a sound that was half thunder and half whisper. The keepers did not walk. They drifted, their presence bending the very air. Every instinct in me screamed to run. But Lyra and Kane stood unmoving, side by side, their hands glowing faintly where their fingers touched. "Don't move," Lyra said without turning. "They measure movement. They weigh intent." I froze, my pulse hammering in my ears. The closest keeper lowered its faceless head toward us, and I saw the outline of countless stars burning within its body, like the night sky condensed into one impossible being. Its voice came not from its mouth but from the heat between heartbeats. "Two carry the lost fire. One carries the seed of flesh. Which of you remembers the oath?" Kane stepped forward, her gaze steady. "We do," she said. "We remember what you took from us." The air shuddered, and the keeper's glow flared, illuminating the cracks of molten gold beneath her armor. "Then why do you walk with the kind who stole it?" Lyra turned her eyes to me, and in that moment, I felt utterly human, small, fragile, a flicker of warmth in a universe of endless cold. "Because," she said quietly, "his fire is the only one left that was never born of theft." The keeper's light dimmed for a moment, as if considering her words. Then one extended an arm, a spire of molten light, and pressed a hand against the ground. The earth ignited, forming a circle of flame around us. The heat was unbearable, and I fell to my knees, gasping. Kane reached down, pulling me to my feet. "Hold still," she said, her voice low but urgent. "It's testing us." "Testing what?" I managed to choke out. "Faith," Lyra whispered. "Not in gods, in each other." The fire rose higher, curling toward us, but it didn't burn. It clung, swirling around my hands, my chest, like it was searching. I felt it crawl under my skin, igniting every nerve with unbearable light. For a moment I saw everything: Earth, the Reach, the Twins, the vast expanse of stars. The flame wasn't a weapon. It was memory. It was every life that had ever burned and every death that had given warmth to another. When I looked down, the fire wasn't around me anymore. It was in me. Lyra and Cain were both watching, their expressions unreadable. "You carry it," Cain said softly. "The original spark." "That's impossible," I said, my voice shaking. "I'm human." "And humans were the last to touch the first flame," Lyra replied, "before they forgot what it meant." The fire around us began to fade, the keepers' forms dimming. One of them leaned closer, its voice reverberating through my bones. "He carries what was once stolen. If the flame endures, the stars will burn again." Then, as suddenly as they had appeared, the keepers vanished. The air collapsed inward, the light receding until only the night remained. I collapsed, trembling, the ground cold beneath me. Cain knelt beside me, pressing a hand to my shoulder. "You lived," she said softly. "Barely," I muttered. Lyra crouched on my other side, her golden eyes gleaming. "That's enough." We made camp that night beside the remnants of the flame circle. The ground was still warm, the fire's glow faintly embedded in the soil. None of us spoke for a long time. I stared into the horizon where the keepers had vanished, the weight of their words echoing in my head. "The original spark," I said finally. "What does that even mean?" Cain glanced at her sister, and for once, Lyra hesitated before answering. "Our ancestors were not born with flame," she said. "It was a gift or a curse, given to us when we defied the void. We believed the fire was ours alone, until the keepers took it back. What remains in us now is a reflection, a memory." She reached out and touched the faint glow beneath my skin. "But you carry the source." The idea was absurd, yet the warmth pulsing in my chest told me it was true. "So what now?" I asked. "Now," Cain said quietly, "you must learn to control it before it consumes you." The following days were filled with silence and strain. Every time I tried to rest, the heat within me surged, manifesting as sparks that crawled across my arms. Sometimes they burned through my clothing, leaving faint scars that healed within hours. Other times, I saw flashes, images that weren't mine, battles under alien skies, worlds burning not from war, but from renewal. The twins watched over me constantly, one always awake while the other slept. They took turns teaching me how to breathe through the fire, how to let it flow instead of fighting it. "Fire is not rage," Cain said one evening, her voice calm and patient. "It's longing. It seeks balance." Lyra, less patient, barked at me when I lost focus. "You're thinking like a soldier," she snapped. "Control, order, containment. That's not what flame does. It wants to live. Let it." The moment I stopped fighting it, the energy inside me shifted. Instead of burning, it began to move with me, alive, aware, almost conscious. The light dimmed until it became a steady pulse beneath my skin, like a second heartbeat. Lyra exhaled, satisfied. "Good," she said. "Now you won't die when the next wave comes." "Next wave?" I asked. "You think the keepers were the end?" Cain's expression darkened. "They were the beginning." We reached the edge of the Mirrorglade, a valley of metallic trees whose leaves sang faintly in the wind. The Dominion had once tried to harvest the metal, but their machines failed, melting from the resonance that filled the air. The twins said this place was sacred to their kind. It was where the Pyrrhian covenant had first been made, the birthplace of their fire. When I stepped into the glade, the trees began to shimmer, their branches reflecting my movements. Lyra's hand brushed mine as she walked beside me. "They know you," she said. "They remember what you were." I looked at her, startled. "What I was?" Cain answered softly. "The first fire did not choose randomly. It chose those who could bear its cost. You're not its first bearer, Kale." The sound of my name in her voice made me freeze. "How do you know my name?" I whispered. Lyra smiled faintly. Because the flame told us. It remembers your line. That night, when the stars burned low, I dreamt of a world covered in firelight. A human stood at its center, holding a burning sphere in his hands, his face hidden in the glare. Behind him, two crimson figures knelt in the ash, their hands outstretched toward the light. When I woke, Lyra was standing over me, her expression tense. "You saw it," she said. "You saw the first flame." "I think so," I murmured. "But it wasn't me." "No," Kane said softly, joining us. "It was the one who came before you, the one who gave the fire to us." I stared at them, realization dawning like sunrise. "Humans gave you your flame." Lyra nodded slowly. "Once, long ago, before you forgot what it meant to share." Her eyes met mine, and I saw something fierce, almost desperate, in her gaze. "You have a chance to remember." The wind shifted then, and I smelled smoke. Faint, sharp, wrong. Lyra stiffened. Kane drew her weapon, a curved blade of alloy that gleamed like molten glass. "They're here," she said. "Who?" I asked. Lyra's eyes burned brighter. "Those who forgot what fire was for." And when the horizon flared red, I understood. Dominion warships had found us. The Dominion came not as soldiers but as a storm of light. Their ships descended through the clouds like falling stars, each one radiating a sickly blue glow that poisoned the air. The sound reached us before the impact. Low, pulsing, mechanical, like the heartbeat of a dying god. We ran through the mirror glade, the ground alive with heat as energy blasts tore through the metallic trees, sending fragments spinning through the air like shards of broken mirrors. The sky itself seemed to scream. Lyra moved first, her body a streak of crimson and gold as she ignited, her armor becoming one with the flame that flowed from her veins. Kane followed, her fire darker, deeper, her steps leaving molten footprints behind. Together they were unstoppable, their twin lights weaving through the chaos like living blades. I tried to keep up, firing at shadows, watching Dominion troopers melt in the heat they couldn't understand. But for every enemy that fell, more came. They weren't here to fight. They were here to capture. They wanted the flame, the same power they tried to steal from the Pyrians before. And now, because of me, they knew where it lived. Lyra caught sight of the largest ship landing beyond the ridge, a fortress of metal and light descending like judgment. "The Ascendant," she spat. "They've brought a keeper core." "What does that mean?" I asked, panting. "It means they learned from their mistakes," Kane said grimly. "They've rebuilt what the gods destroyed." The ground shuddered as the ship's core split open, releasing a flood of drones that spread like locusts, blanketing the sky in blue fire. I aimed and fired, but the rounds did nothing. The drones didn't bleed, they absorbed. Each shot I took only made them brighter. Lyra turned toward me, her expression fierce and strangely calm. "The flame they want is inside you now," she said. "If they take you, they'll reignite every dead world in their image." She stepped closer, placing her hand on my chest. "Then we'll burn them first." Before I could speak, she turned to Kane. "We need to merge." Kane hesitated, her jaw tightening. "You'll kill yourself if you do that." "We'll kill us," Lyra said. "There's no self left without each other." Their eyes met, the air between them vibrating with unspoken history. Then Kane nodded. "Together then." I watched as they raised their hands toward each other, their palms glowing brighter until their light connected. A beam of white fire that cut through the smoke and sky, fusing into a single, pulsing sphere. The air grew heavy, humming with the frequency of creation itself. Their bodies began to blur, their voices overlapping. "Step back, Kale," they said in perfect unison. "The flame is not gentle." I stumbled away as their fusion completed, the heat washing over me like a tidal wave. When the light faded enough for me to see, they were gone. In their place stood something both familiar and terrifying. A single figure, taller than either sister had been, her skin a storm of red and gold, her hair pure white fire cascading down her back. Her eyes glowed with twin irises, one gold, one silver, and when she spoke, Her voice carried both tones, harmonized and whole. "We are one," she said. "We are the Flameborn." The ground cracked beneath her feet as she lifted her hands, and from them poured an inferno unlike anything I'd ever witnessed. The Dominion lines evaporated in an instant, their ships melting into the horizon. The drones fell from the sky like ash. She didn't fight. She simply burned, and the world obeyed. I shielded my face from the light, my skin blistering despite the distance. "Lyra! Cain! You have to stop!" I shouted, but the being that stood before me was beyond names now. She turned her head toward me, her twin-colored eyes glowing with unbearable warmth. "You gave us your fire," she said, her voice echoing through the very ground. "Now we give you the universe." And then she was gone, ascending into the heavens on wings of flame, leaving behind a scar in the clouds that burned for hours. When silence finally returned, the valley was unrecognizable. The Mirrorglade was gone, replaced by fields of obsidian glass that still pulsed faintly with living light. I stood alone in the center of it, the only sound my own ragged breathing. Then I felt it, a flicker beneath my skin, deep in the chest where their hands had once rested. A heartbeat that wasn't mine. "Lyra?" I whispered. "Cain?" The pulse quickened in response. That night I didn't sleep. The horizon glowed faintly from the residue of their fire, and I sat by what little remained of the wreckage, my thoughts burning brighter than the embers around me. The Dominion was gone from this sector, annihilated, but so were they, or so I thought. When I reached out with my mind, with the strange awareness their touch had awakened in me, I felt them, not gone but changed. Not voices, not memories, but presences. They were inside the flame now, woven into its rhythm. When I closed my eyes, I could feel Lyra's defiance and Cain's calm merging together, circling me like twin orbits around the same star. "You're not alone," Lyra's voice whispered from somewhere deep within. "We swore it," Cain added softly. The warmth in my chest grew stronger until I could barely breathe, but it wasn't pain. It was purpose. Days passed as I wandered the ash plains, searching for meaning. The flame within me grew steadier, clearer. I discovered I could summon it now, not through anger or fear, but through memory. A single thought of them, and my palms would ignite in soft gold. The fire obeyed intention. When I thought of protection, it formed a shield. When I thought of mercy, it became light. It was their gift and my burden. By the time I reached the border of the Old Dominion frontier, word had already spread. Whispers of a human who walked among the ruins with fire in his veins and twin voices guiding his steps. Some called me cursed. Others called me chosen. I called myself alive. Weeks later, I came upon a settlement built among the bones of a fallen carrier. They were survivors, humans, Pyrians, even defectors from the Dominion, living together in fragile peace. When I approached, they stared in awe at the faint glow beneath my skin. A child stepped forward, eyes wide. "Are you one of them?" she asked. I smiled faintly. "No," I said. "I'm just someone they trusted." The elders took me in, offering food and rest. That night, they gathered around the fire and asked for stories. I told them about the twins, about the flame that was both curse and gift, about the way they fought not for domination but for balance. When I finished, an old man bowed his head. "Then you are the keeper now," he said. "No," I replied quietly. "I'm the reminder." But deep down I knew the truth. I was both, because every time the wind shifted, carrying the scent of smoke and stars, I heard them again. "You carry us," Lyra would whisper. "And we carry you," Cain would add. And though the stars burned cold and distant above me, I never felt alone again. Years passed, though I no longer counted them in days or seasons. The world had changed. The Dominion's fall had left a vacuum no empire could fill, and in its absence, new alliances took root. Fragile, uneasy, but alive. Across the ruined systems of the Orion expanse, people whispered the same story. Of a human who carried the living fire of the Pyrians, who walked the worlds the gods had burned and rekindled them with light that did not destroy. I had no name anymore, not one that mattered. They called me the Flamekeeper. I didn't deny it, though I never felt worthy of the title. I was still just Kale, the soldier who had once been afraid of fire. But the twins were with me always. Their voices were constant companions, woven through my every breath. Sometimes they argued inside me, Lyra's ferocity clashing with Kane's calm, their duality keeping my humanity balanced. Other times they spoke as one, whispering guidance when the burden grew heavy. In the nights between stars, when silence felt endless, I could feel them in the hum of my veins, a rhythm that tethered me to something larger than life. I began to travel between the colonies, human and alien alike, teaching those willing to learn how to listen to flame without fear. We built what we called hearths, great spires of living fire drawn from the energy within me, each one connected to the next across light years. The hearths gave warmth to worlds where suns had long gone dark, kept ships alive in the deep void, and reminded those who gathered around them that survival was not an accident. It was a choice shared. The first time I lit a hearth, the flames rose not in red or gold, but in two intertwining streams. One deep crimson, one brilliant silver white. The crowd fell silent, and I could feel their awe pressing against me like heat. "There with you," whispered a Pyrian priestess. "Both of them." I nodded, unable to speak. I knew what the twin colors meant. It was Lyra and Kane, still burning, still guiding. Every hearth carried a fraction of their essence. Every light in the dark was proof that they had not been erased, only reborn. But balance is fragile, and light always draws shadows. It began with tremors, distortions in the hearth network, flickers of power that pulsed out of rhythm. At first, I thought it was simply age or misuse by those who didn't understand the gift. Then came the visions, flashes of a world made of glass and smoke, where something vast stirred beneath the crust. The flame within me pulsed violently whenever I dreamt of it. Lyra's voice was the first to break the silence. "They're not gone," she said. "The keepers?" I asked. "No," Kane answered. "Something worse. The Dominion learned what we could not destroy. They learned to imitate the divine." It was then that I understood the Dominion had not truly died. They had buried themselves beneath the ashes, studying the fragments of the Keeper core left behind. They were building again, and this time their gods were machines. "Then we end it," I said aloud, staring into the distant stars. "You can't do this alone," Lyra warned. "You won't survive the burn," Kane added. "Then help me burn brighter," I answered. And for the first time in years, they laughed together inside me, their twin voices full of pride. "You always were one of us," they said. I returned to the mirror glade, or what remained of it. The plains were still black glass, reflecting a sky full of storms. The hearth I had built there was the first and brightest, a tower of light that reached into the clouds. It hummed softly as I approached, responding to the pulse in my chest. I laid my hand against its surface, and for a moment, everything stilled. I saw flashes, worlds where the hearth still burned, people gathering around them, the fragile network holding civilization together. I also saw the fractures forming, spreading outward from one point, the Dominion's rebirth site. They called it the Hollow Star. If it reached full power, it would consume the network and bend the flame to their will. I felt Lyra's fury ignite within me. "We won't let them," she said. "No more chains," Kane whispered. I nodded, feeling their strength surge through me. "Then let's finish what we started." The journey to the Hollow Star took months, though time felt meaningless once I left the safe routes. The closer I drew to it, the more the stars seemed to flicker, their light bending unnaturally. The system itself was dying, a collapsed star suspended in orbit by machines the size of cities, feeding on its last embers. Dominion vessels floated like carrion birds, their hulls fused with organic growths of synthetic flesh. Whatever they were building was alive in the worst way possible. I landed on a fractured moon that orbited the structure, the heat from the starless void pressing against my skin. The moment my boots touched the ground, the flame within me flared. Lyra's voice filled my head, sharp and urgent. "Feels us." Kane's voice followed, steadier but no less grave. "We're connected now. There's no turning back." I smiled grimly. "Wouldn't dream of it." The hollow star loomed above me, pulsing with stolen fire. It was beautiful in its cruelty, an imitation of the divine, a false sun made of suffering. As I approached the entrance, Dominion sentries emerged, their eyes glowing the same artificial blue I'd seen the day the twins were taken. I raised my hands, summoning the twin-colored flame that had slept inside me for so long. It answered instantly, wrapping around my arms like living armor. I felt Lyra's rage surge through my right hand, Kane's grace through my left. Together we moved as one. The battle was swift and blinding. Every strike tore through machines like paper, every flame leaving behind streaks of light that lingered in the air. When the last sentry fell, I stood before the heart of the hollow star, a massive core pulsing like a heartbeat. Inside it, I saw faces flickering, human, Pyrian, Dominion, all screaming in silent agony. "They're using souls to feed it," I whispered. "Then free them," Lyra said. "Set them alight," Kane urged. I stepped forward, pressing my hands to the core. The moment I touched it, pain unlike anything I'd ever known ripped through me. The fire inside me surged outward, colliding with the false light of the Dominion. It was like trying to drown a sun. The two forces clashed, neither willing to yield. My vision filled with light, my skin cracking under the strain. I heard the twins shouting through the chaos. "Kale, let go," Lyra screamed. "You can't fight it this way." Kane's voice was calm but firm. "Share it, Kale. Don't wield it, be it." I took a breath, or thought I did, and released everything. The fire left my body in a torrent of color, flooding the hollow star until the metal screamed. The false sun shattered, its light exploding outward in a wave that burned across the void. For a heartbeat, I saw Lyra and Kane standing before me. Not ghosts, but whole, alive, their eyes alight with pride. "You kept your promise," they said together. And then everything went white. When I woke, I was lying in the ashes of the moon. The hollow star was gone. Above me, a new light glowed faintly in the sky. Not harsh, not mechanical, but gentle, alive. A real star, reborn from the fragments of the false one. The hearths across the galaxy pulsed in unison, answering the call. I felt the fire inside me still burning, but softer now. No longer caged, no longer mine alone. "We did it," I whispered. "We did it," Lyra's voice echoed faintly. "And now you rest," Kane added. "Not yet," I said, smiling weakly. "There's always another cold world out there." "Then go," they whispered. "Keep walking. Keep the flame." I stood beneath the newborn sun, the warmth washing over my skin, and for the first time since the war began, the universe felt alive again. I wasn't its savior. I was simply its reminder that even in the ashes of gods and empires, humanity's fire still burned, shared and unending. Centuries passed, though I felt each one as a flicker in the endless glow. Time no longer moved for me as it once did. The flame had remade me, not immortal but enduring. I aged like a star does, slowly, beautifully, knowing that one day even my light would fade. But not yet. Across the spiral arms of the galaxy, the hearths continued to burn, living symbols of unity born from pain. New generations grew up never knowing the Dominion, only the warmth of shared flame and the tales of those who gave it. I became a myth before I was ready, a figure carved into glass temples, a name whispered by children who thought fire was magic, not memory. Sometimes I would travel in disguise, walking among them, listening to their stories. They spoke of the twin sisters who sacrificed everything, of the human who carried their light, and of the vow that bound them all. They swore never to leave him. They would say, their voices reverent, and when they asked where I thought he went, I always smiled and said, he never left. He just kept walking. In those moments, I felt Lyra's laughter ripple through me like lightning, and Kane's steady warmth settle in my chest like dawn. They were still here, burning quietly behind every heartbeat, every shared act of kindness, every spark that refused to die. One night, while traveling through the ruins of a derelict world long since cooled, I came upon a hearth that had gone dark. It was small, forgotten, overgrown with glass vines. But its core still hummed faintly, like a dying ember whispering for air. I knelt beside it and placed my hands against the surface. "It's all right," I said softly. "You're not alone." The flame within me responded, flowing out through my palms, reigniting the hearth in a burst of silver and crimson light. The glow spread across the ruins, reflecting in the shattered windows, bringing warmth back to a place that had known only silence. I sat there for a long time watching the light dance. It reminded me of that first night at Valter's Reach, when I saw two alien warriors summon fire from their hands and refuse to abandon a dying soldier. Back then, I thought it was mercy. Now I understood it was faith. Not in gods, but in the choice to keep another alive. That was what the fire had always meant. That was what they'd given me. When I finally rose, the hearth's flame flickered, and for an instant, I saw their shapes reflected in it. Lyra, fierce as ever, and Cain, calm and luminous. "You still carry us," Lyra said. "And always will," Cain added. "I know," I whispered. "But you carry me too." As I traveled on, I began to sense the universe changing again. The stars had grown closer somehow, their light blending into a single vast ocean of color. I could feel it, the end of the journey, the point where all things returned to their beginning. The flame inside me pulsed faster, like it knew where we were going. I followed its pull to the edge of a dying nebula where the remnants of the hollow star had once burned. There, floating amid the remnants of dust and light, was something impossible. A sphere of pure fire, calm and eternal. It wasn't destruction. It was renewal. "The first flame," I breathed. "Home," Lyra whispered. "Balance," Cain added. I stepped closer, and the fire parted, revealing a pathway made of light. As I walked, the weight of years slipped from my shoulders. My body began to dissolve into warmth, my senses expanding until I could feel every flicker of life in the galaxy. The laughter of children around distant hearths, the hum of ships crossing the dark, the slow heartbeat of worlds healing. Every light was connected, every warmth a thread in the tapestry the twins and I had woven. And at its center, waiting for me, stood two figures. Familiar, radiant, whole. Lyra's grin was exactly as I remembered, defiant, fearless, alive. Cain's eyes shimmered with that same calm fire that had once burned through chaos. "Took you long enough," Lyra said. I laughed, feeling tears I hadn't shed in centuries. "You know me," I said, "always late to the miracles." Cain reached out, touching my face with a hand that felt like sunlight. "You kept the vow," she said. "You shared the fire." I nodded. "And the galaxy remembered." The twins exchanged a look, the same silent understanding that had always bound them. Then they stepped forward, each taking one of my hands. "Then it's time," Lyra said. "Time for what?" I asked, though I already knew. Cain smiled softly. "To rest." I looked past them into the heart of the flame, where infinite light spiraled like a living heartbeat. "Will it hurt?" "No," they said together. "It will feel like coming home." The fire enveloped us, warm and boundless. I didn't burn. I became. The last thing I saw before dissolving into light were their faces. Two halves of one whole, radiant and eternal. When the stars rose again over the new galaxy, travelers claimed they could see twin suns orbiting a third, their light intertwined so perfectly that no shadow could ever form between them. They said if you listened closely on quiet nights near a hearth, you could hear a faint whisper, a trio of voices carried by the wind. One fierce, one calm, and one deeply human. They told stories of how fire became faith, how flame became memory, and how love, no matter how alien, no matter how ancient, could ignite creation itself. And so the legend endured, of a man who shared his flame with two alien sisters, and of the promise they made to never leave each other, even beyond the boundaries of stars.